The Daily Dribble.
Welcome back to the Daily Dribble podcast, guys. As always, I'm your host, Nick Zammit. See what, the boys are back together.
Boys
finally.
are back.
It's been a couple of weeks, but we are finally all back in studio together once again. Joining me for another massive installment is Mr. Lee Hancock.
What's going on, guys? Lee here.
How are you, Budweiser? You travelling well?
Traveling well. Probably need some WD-40. I feel like I'm going to be a bit rusty.
Kind of like the Tin Man, Wizard of Oz. Just need to loosen up the joints a little bit.
I think we're going into the sun.
Oh.
I guess we should preface this ahead of the episode for our video listeners or watchers.
Yeah,
We've had a bit of an issue with the old Zoom recording over the last few weeks. It's fair to say, and today seems no different, unfortunately. But
I thought to you guys the other day, like, please, if you know what the solution is to this, hit us up on the socials, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok. There's a nice early plug as well. Would love to hear what your best remedies are for Zoom, or if you've got any other video platforms you use, would love to hear anything and everything.
It's not a camera issue either, even though it looks that way.
But we've got the heart of a true champion. We will push on. Also joining us back once again, Mr. Roy Hancock. How are you, buddy?
Yeah, good, Nick. Nice to be here. Nice of you to hold the fort for the last few weeks while we've been out and about. But yeah, glad to be back. And
can you see? Does it look like we've got a little more shoulder width here? Like I'm carrying a big load on these shoulders.
I thought you were hitting the delts at the gym. But,
no, I have been as well.
Oh, you have been? Okay.
Nice but no, fellas, it's I'm happy doing any and all podcasts, whether that be solo, whether that be with a group, whatever the case may be. I love anything and everything. I've quite enjoyed doing the solo one, just being good, but there's nothing quite like the energy of being together. So it's great to have you guys back on board. Big episode, lads.
Huge one ahead.
We are just hurtling towards the plane at the moment. Most teams have roughly around 20 games to go for the regular season. Hence, we thought tonight would be a good opportunity just to kind of shed a little bit of a light on the play-in picture as it stands, kind of give our predictions for which teams from each conference we think will be in the play-in and the eventual winners of those matchups. I'm sure there'll be a couple of differences there, a couple of debates, things of the kind. But tell you what, lads, every game now feels like it's got so much riding on it, doesn't it?
I don't know about you guys, but has it ever been as congested as it is this year? I don't know if it's just recency bias, just because we're obviously can remember and are experiencing this logjam of an East and Western Conference. But to be honest with you, I can't remember too many recent seasons where it's been this congested. And, you know, teams down to about 13 still have the possibility of slotting in quite easily, only a game or two back.
Well, a little shout out last night. I was having a chat on my own personal Instagram account there. A friend I went to high school, to college, should I say, with Denver, Kearney. We were speaking just about how open it is, both conferences at the moment. I agree wholeheartedly with what you just said, Ro. I don't think in recent times there's been a year where there's so many potential winners, and it makes for some really exciting bowls. So, lads, let's get into it. We'll start quickly with some odds and ends before we get into the bulk of the show. Let's start first and foremost. Now, this is a guy we've spoken about quite a bit over the last couple of weeks. None of it good news. It was kind of compounded during the week. From reports from ESPN, it seems as if Lonzo Ball is likely he will need a third surgical procedure on his left knee. They're currently weighing it up with other specialist surgeons. But if that were to be the case, and this were to eventuate later in the month, whatever the case may be over the course of the next couple of weeks, it would seem very unlikely that he'll be ready for the start of the 2023-2024 season.
Incredible.
Now, with that, fellas, we've spoken about how the Bulls over the last 12, 24 months have looked best when Lonzo's on the court, but undoubtedly.
Oh, they're an absolute shell of a team without him.
If he's not going to be right, do they almost pack in this iteration, do you think? Like, is it time to, we certainly hope for a speedy recovery, but is it time to kind of venture away? Is it maybe a Vooch, a Lonzo, a Levine, a DeRozan? Do they just kind of start from scratch? Because it feels as if at this point, they're never going to get back to where they were at the start of last season.
I think that's the direction they're probably looking at and heading at the moment. I mean, they're not even in the play-in picture at the moment. I think they're one or two teams out. If they don't make the play-in, I think that's definitely going to be the option.
Interested to hear whether you have them in there or not very shortly.
Yes, but Yeah, I think nonetheless, near future they're blowing it up, and that's what I've wanted them to do.
And for yourself, Ro, do you tend to agree with that, or do you think they should, like, hope for the best? 6 months' time, if this procedure goes ahead, they get him back healthy, that they can kind of return to that start they had at the beginning of last season.
So the thing is, from my perspective, that if Lonzo Ball was to regain his health, I consider them, they'll probably be up at around that 6th to 5th mark in the East at the absolute highest. But the fact of the matter is, Lonzo Ball, throughout pretty much the entirety of his career so far, has been riddled with injuries, and it's been a real shame for him. So, in my opinion, I think they should have blown it up already for starters. But going forward, I think this is like the cherry on top to go, look, we need to start again. And if that means offloading Zach LaVine, Vooch, Lonzo, who would take Lonzo with his current injury concerns, I think they need to get that sorted as soon as possible, because I think we mentioned a few weeks ago, Nick and Lee, that they're one of these teams who haven't made a decision either way as to whether they want to trade for players to go up the standings or blow it up and just start from scratch. And
we hate that, don't we? Here at the Daily Dribble, we hate mediocrity.
We hate mediocrity. It's the catchphrase of the show.
It is.
They have been just that for pretty much since Lonzo got injured midway through last season. So blow it up for mine. The Chicago natives aren't going to like that, though, are they?
I know. Shout out to our probably our longest, most faithful listener, Caleb, Apex Fraser there, doing wonderful things in the music industry. Our resident Bulls fan. Mate, we've not had many good things to say about the Bulls in recent times.
No.
Hopefully the tide will start to turn for you soon. Pushing ahead. Now, horrible news, and we spoke about this just before we came on air, Lee. Kevin Durant. Yesterday in their matchup against the Thunder, was warming up, was going for a layup and slipped on the floor. Since being, said that he's set to miss 2 to 3 weeks with a left ankle injury. Did you guys see the video?
I did.
And I saw like an image of his ankle when it actually went, and it was going opposite directions.
Yeah,
it
wasn't
didn't
good.
look pretty, did it? And I'll tell you what, like, so much optimism surrounding the Phoenix Suns, particularly after they've acquired Kevin Durant, but this is just like the furthest thing from ideal for them at the moment, particularly heading into playoffs where they want to have a bit of synchronicity between their squad.
A bit of what?
Synchronicity?
I think
is that a word?
I was about to say, is that a word? If it is, that's the word of the day.
Let's bring it out. We'll try and use it again.
Unbelievable. But, I was going to go for continuity. But go it again.
Synchronicity.
I love that. Please be a word, because that's phenomenal.
I think it is a word.
Yeah,
surely,
fair play to you.
Get the dictionaries.
There you go,
dictionaries
mate.
out. But look, and the other thing is, like, out of all the ways for it to happen, he didn't do it dropping 30 on a team and taking
what are the Cowboys doing? Are they there pre tip off?
I know.
I actually thought that. I thought, is someone going to get fired for that?
We've had some up close experiences and being able to see the Jack Jumpers Cowboys.
They're on it.
They are on it.
They do a wonderful job, let's be honest.
Unbelievable stuff there. But what was going on there? There's surely someone's mopping up the wet spots there prior to tip off.
Obviously not.
But that's incredible. 2 to 3 weeks, looking at returning just in and around the start of the end, should I say, of the regular season. Lee, do you think he'll be able to fit back in pretty seamlessly on his return?
Of course he will. I mean, he fit in seamlessly as soon as he got there. I mean, they were 3-0 when they got him. He's gone down. Who knows where it'll go from here? But yeah, I've faith that he'll be able to integrate himself.
And what did George Michael say, Lee?
What?
You gotta have faith.
Okay.
In other ankle news, through to the wrong guy on that. You're born too late.
Threw the alley-oop and it went out of bounds, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's it. No good on that one. For the Lakers, Mo Bamba's expected to be out for 4 weeks with a left ankle sprain. Pending they make it, that'll see him return just at the end or the conclusion of the regular season, hopefully. After coming over from Orlando, he's looked quite good there for the Lakers. So hopefully he comes back with a clean bill of health. Speaking of the Magic, in less than ideal news, now this is a guy I was so hyped for so long about his return. The idea of this guy is phenomenal. Jonathan Isaac, What a horrible week he's had.
Hasn't he had a shocking run?
Returned a couple of weeks ago, suited up in 11 games after being out for 2 years. He's gone down with a torn left adductor muscle. He's going to be out for the rest of the regular season. Has since undergone surgery, but just horrible news for him. Just after, as I said, just after seeing him return, and for the most part, he looked quite good. He's showing a bit on both ends of the floor. 25 years old now, got a little bit more leadership experience behind him there, an older body in that young team. Really unfortunate for him. So fingers crossed. I truly hope we get to see him back fit and healthy next season. Hopefully no more injuries.
Let's hope not, because you come across these guys every now and again throughout the course of their career, just can't get a continuous run at it, can't get a good run at it. And Jonathan Isaac has been no exception. Coming back after that long-term 2-year injury, as you were mentioning, Nick, it was a good news story when he first hit the court after coming back.
Hyped.
It was incredible news, and then so soon after to go down again, it'd be so demoralising for him after all the hard work that he would have had to put in over the last few years. Let's hope he can get back out there quite soon.
I always think he's almost, the idea of him is almost like a prototype. If you were to go into a lab and kind of construct a player, he's just about what you would put together.
He's got the ideal athleticism, body.
Does it on both ends of the floor.
Yes.
It's just that big injury cloud that's hung over him for so long now. So hopefully this will be the final piece. Fingers crossed.
Let's hope so.
Fellas, I tell you what, the Grizzlies, what a week they've had there out in Memphis. The only shining light was a big win over the Warriors today. But outside of that, it has been the week from hell. Steven Adams, during the week, he had a stem cell injection in his knee. With that, he's going to be reevaluated in 4 weeks. So that's going to see him miss the rest of the regular season at a minimum, reevaluated in 4 weeks. So that's not great news.
Those big bodies take a little longer to recover as well, unfortunately.
Certainly do. Brandon Clark, he's going to miss the rest of the regular season, or miss the rest of the season, should I say, after suffering an Achilles tear. He was averaging 10 points, 5.5 rebounds, 1 assist on 65% from the field this season. So horrible news there, and it's just kind of really testing their depth a little bit, especially with the news that Ja Morant is set to be out indefinitely whilst he sorts out all the issues surrounding him. I'm sure many of our listeners, you're diehard NBA fans, you would have seen all the news surrounding Ja Morant over the last week or so. Expected at a minimum at least another probably week that he's going to miss, but there isn't a timeline on his return. So, for me, I'm even with Ja, with Adams, if Brandon Clark were healthy at full strength, I'm still not quite sold on them. But with these bodies out, and in particular Ja, how do you guys think this will impact their season going forward?
Well, for mine, it's the injuries, but it's also the distractions, which are a major contributor as to why I think they might struggle to get back on track. Like today, for example, that win over the Warriors, probably their first. It was a gutsy win, but it was probably their first good positive headline in a fair while, because they've obviously had Ja in the headlines for the wrong reasons. They've had Dylan Brooks, as always, getting amongst the headlines.
I hate that guy.
Yeah.
And I was always told growing up, you don't hate anyone. Mum would always say, hate's such a strong word. You don't hate anyone. I hate that guy. He's a prick.
He's an absolute villain. He plays the role well. I love
that for it.
He does play the role.
The league needs it.
It does. But yeah, for mine as well, I'm not sold on them, even if they are at full strength come playoffs. They've had such a disrupted last end of the year. And now, particularly with these injuries as well, it's not looking good for them.
When have you seen a team win a championship or even make the finals who aren't completely and utterly locked in? Like, these guys are not locked in my opinion. The Jazz situation just speaks to, I want to say the whole team's immaturity. I know it was his actions, but they're a young team. Like you said, I don't like what Dylan Brooks is doing. They have a couple nice young guys, but
I'd love to see a series with them and the Warriors, though.
Just
run it back. On that lead, though. So Steven Adams the other day kind of came out with a bit of a spiel about, we've kind of got to show a little more maturity, blah, 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 not going out, kind of taking a bit of pride in what we do. Following that, Ja Morant's gone out. The big issues arisen with him.
Yeah.
what do you do if you're this franchise? You're in a funny predicament, aren't you? Because you've got Jar. He's the franchise cornerstone. He's the guy you're building around. He's one of the best players within the league, probably the most exciting to watch.
Mm-hmm.
But at the moment, he's just gone off the rails a little bit. How do you kind of, get this shit back on track?
Did the Memphis Grizzlies, did they suspend Jar, or did the NBA, or what? You know what happened?
It was a bit of a combination between the both.
Because obviously Memphis would need to take some accountability and suspend him for a couple of games,
which they have, which is good. But
then it's like, do they go to a camp where they, like, you know what I mean? What are those called? Like team chemistry camp?
Yeah.
Like they just need to be on the right page, and this is obviously going to create some chemistry issues. Stephen Adams has just said they need to show more maturity. He being one of the leaders of that team, and he's gone and done that.
So with that, do you think, Ro, do they, because it's Jar, like I know they put certain things in place, do they give him a little bit more leash, or do you say, if this keeps happening, mate, you're out of here? Like, I don't care how good you are. We can't have this in our franchise because it's toxic.
It's absolutely the case, isn't it? Like, I think he certainly does get a bit more leash, because you think of, like, even back in the day with Gilbert Arenas and who was it that was in the change rooms, but he pulled out the Glock and it didn't look like it was downhill from that point. But
different kind of scenario. Dennis Rodman being given that leash, go off to Vegas for a couple of days, blow off some steam. A different kind of leash, but still having that.
It was a different era too, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
It was a very much
100%.
It was more lenient.
But where is the line? Where's the line for the Memphis Grizzlies? Where's the line for the NBA? I feel like the Memphis Grizzlies are likely to give Jar far more leash than the NBA will give him, because it's a terrible look for the NBA. I'm sure Adam Silver's absolutely furious. The fact that one of his faces of the league at the moment and going forward is doing such irresponsible stuff that looks terrible for, like, the as a role model, and like the kids watching it thinking, particularly in America, it blows my mind. In America, gun violence is such a prevalent issue.
You can't pull up in the club, just for clarity. I'm sure you've all seen it, but pulling up in the club and he's whipped out the gun, like, that's just not. It's not on.
Like someone said, it might have been Shaq or someone, but it's not like the gun accidentally fired or anything. He held the gun to the camera. It was his own action.
And there's not a day that goes by that you don't see, some gun-related violence or action going on. So I think for the Grizzlies moving forward, they need to have a long, hard sit-down with Jar. Jar needs to get some help on a personal level, some really serious help.
Even throughout this suspension, he was on a boat, like, partying.
Yeah.
It just shows, like, what direction is he going? And you'd think this massive headline, it's been the biggest headline, one of the biggest headlines in the NBA this year in terms of off court. And it seems like he's not learning from it. If he comes back and does something similar, like the Memphis Grizzlies, like, you don't let him go straight away as your franchise player, but like you said, what do you do?
And it's horrible because he is such a big star. There is so much that hinges on him. You try and see, the possibility, the potential, everything else, but there's also the reality of what's going on with the situation at the minute, and you simply cannot have that, not only within the franchise, but within the NBA full stop at the moment.
Oh, couldn't agree more. And, I mean, I was mentioning before how the NBA's leash on him would be very short, and that goes to show when I think it came out as per Woj or Shams, one of the two big news breakers in the NBA, said that if he got found guilty, he would have automatically missed the next 50 games. So that just goes to show that they're not mucking around when it comes to this irresponsible behavior off the court. And don't get me wrong, Ja Morant, in my eyes, is one of my favorite players, as you were saying, one of the most exciting players. But at the end of the day, his actions are sort of bigger than the game of basketball at the moment. It's a bad role model, and he should be doing better.
Well, fingers crossed they can sort this out. He can get himself sorted. The Grizzlies can get back on track, because I really think without him at the helm, their season's going to come to a pretty anticlimactic finish.
To cut it short, they're not fine in the West.
They're absolutely not.
No true words ever spoken, Lee. Well said, buddy. Let's move ahead, guys.
Daily Dribble.
Okay, as we said at the top of the show, we're now approaching about the 20-game mark for a lot of the teams around the league. And hence now every game is having huge ramifications moving forward on the playing picture. It is that close currently in the East and Western Conference. There's a bit of a logjam through that middle section. So we thought tonight would provide a really good opportunity for us to impart our thoughts and predictions on this particular area. What we might do, lads, we might start with the East. We'll start with our predictions. Who's going to face off in the 7-8 matchup, the 9-10 matchup, and then the resulting third game. Give our winners, give our thoughts on that and how we see it all playing out. Then we'll transition to the West. Guys, as always, we love hearing what you have to say. It's been super, super enjoyable having a multitude of conversations with you guys from everything NBA related, finals related, playing related. So be sure to keep it coming. Subscribe wherever you listen to the show, whether that's YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and keep the good conversations coming.
Lads, kick us off.
I'll kick us off with the East. In my 7-8 matchup, I have the Miami Heat facing the Atlanta Hawks. Now,
big matchup.
The winner in this, I see being Atlanta.
Oh, okay.
Now, which is probably a little bit contentious, just given the fact they've faced off a couple of times over the last week or so, and Miami's prevailed both times over the last week or so. I just think Atlanta. I think, to be fair, Trey's had a pretty poor season. All things considered, like you look at the box score, he's having 25 and 10 or whatever it is. Efficiency-wise, he's been really poor. The whole DeJounte Murray thing hasn't quite clicked as probably they hoped it would. But I still think in terms of talent on the court, I'm picking them in a one-game matchup.
Well, we saw them not last year, a few years ago in the playoffs, and they went on an absolute tear, didn't they? And Trey was a big reason behind it. So, that's a big call, but I can almost see it happening.
If both teams were to fire, I just see the Hawks maybe out battling the Heat there. So that's my prediction for the 7-8 matchup in the East. Do you want me to carry on with the rest?
Go for it.
And then
please do.
So in the 9-10 matchup, I have the Raptors facing, surprisingly, the Chicago Bulls.
Okay.
Now, I've got the winner in this one actually being the Bulls. Now, the Raptors, spoken about a bit, again, over the last couple of weeks. Their starting five, I think, is really, really good. They've added a little bit of depth, adding Will Barton there. But I think the Bulls have more game winners. Now, you look at Levine, you look at DeRozan. They're two guys you can go down for in clutch time to get your bucket. I just think they're probably better poised in a one-game matchup. So hence, I've got the Bulls in the 9-10. In the last chance matchup, that would have Miami Heat facing the Toronto Raptors in Miami. The winner of that one for me being Miami. Again, in terms of this matchup, as much as the rotation shortened a little bit towards the playoffs, I just think the Heat are probably a little bit better poised in terms of depth, in terms of shooters, being the big point there. And I think Bam can be a real deterrent in this one as well. So I've got the Heat outlasting to take that final chance spot in the Eastern Conference.
Imagine if the Bulls made it after the season they've had. Like, I think you're right there certainly in that last matchup, because you have to use the eye test throughout the course of the season to go, well, Chicago have been so far off the mark, and there's been a lot of factors that have
currently one game back of Washington. Just for a little bit of clarity, I had a bit of a look through each team, their remaining fixtures. So that certainly played a little bit as to where I weighed in on this. But I think they'll be able to mow down the Wizards there.
Yep.
Not gonna lie, I've written my notes completely different to you,
mate. That's happy days. We love a little bit of
no, in not a good way. Like, I'm sweating. That's why I did this when you started saying.
Yeah, I saw that. I was.
I wrote my notes as you put it in our chat. We could give our picks for the teams we think will finish in the play-in for each conference and why.
Okay, just give it to us.
Yeah.
So I've done
there's no right or wrong answers.
Yeah, mate. No, that's happy days.
Okay, I just feel like it throws it off a bit.
No.
Probably didn't give enough clarity there on my behalf, but that's okay.
That's okay. We're rusty. We're coming off a few weeks off. It's bound to happen.
Team chemistry builds week on week. You have a couple of weeks off, it dips a little bit. But
so I have why I think they'll finish there, and then I have after who I think will be the matchups and who will win.
Well, there you go. What's the issue
Go
then?
for it.
Okay.
That's great.
So we're doing the East.
Yep.
Okay.
That's the plan.
In that 7 spot, I have the Nets. So they're currently sitting 6.
Yep.
I think they'll fall to 7. Despite winning their last 3 games, and one of them being against the Celtics, where they came back by 20 something. What was it? It's either like 23 or 28.
Yeah, it was about that. Yeah.
I think they will fall. They've won 4 out of their last 10 games. But 4 of those losses came to the Hawks, Knicks, and Bulls, who, in my opinion, I think are on par with them level wise, on par with the Nets.
Okay.
Yep.
It's an argument to put up if you don't think so, but
You got the Bulls better than them?
no, I don't have them better than the Nets. Oh, that's what I'm saying. I think they're on par with them, level wise. So that was disappointing, and that's why I think they'll fall a little bit. They do also have one of the toughest schedules ahead. They verse the Nuggets twice. They verse Bucks, Philly, Cavs, and Kings.
That's a pretty ordinary outlook.
So yeah, I think the Heat will probably jump them for that 6th spot.
Yep.
But the Hawks are 4 games behind them, so I
probably a little bit far.
I don't think they'll catch up. But in saying that, if we're talking on the Nets right now, I really like the Nets.
How fun are they?
Since they've departed with KD and Kyrie, I think Mikal Bridges and also Nick Claxton have been probably 2 of the biggest names as breakout players this season.
Shout out to the Nets today.
Yeah.
They lost by 5 to the Bucks. Granted, there was no Giannis, but they pretty much played their whole second unit the second half of that game.
Yeah.
Their starters didn't really play, and they took it right up to one of the favourites within the whole league.
Yeah.
I think
they're real plucky, aren't they?
Yeah.
One of the most endearing things about the Nets, just quickly, is how little fear they have against any team rather.
It's endearing, isn't it?
Particularly without the big dogs. Like we saw it a few years ago when they were riding off the back of Spencer Dinwiddie and D'Lo. But now we've got the second iteration of this Nets team with not any superstars, but a lot of
I'm kind of rooting for them a little bit. I want them to do well because it's fun.
They're
Cam Johnson, Mikal Bridges, Dinwiddie. It's fun cheering for those guys.
I do want to give myself a pat on the back because a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, here we go. Righto.
A couple of weeks ago, I was, as Nick Claxton was on his rise, I was saying I think in the playoffs he could put it up to these guys like Embiid, Giannis.
I don't think so.
And now I think he's proved himself even more.
No, I disagree.
He's so good on the defensive end.
I think he's going to get found out big time. Just quickly on that game, before I come back to that, Brook Lopez nearly had a very unlikely triple-double today. He got the points, rebounds. He had 9 blocks.
Jesus.
What?
Nine blocks. He was 1 block away from a triple-double of the unlikeliest sort. So shout out to Lopez there. I was tracking it, and I saw him get the 9th, and I was like, oh, please, just get 1 more. This would be incredible.
I tell you what, Brook Lopez, I know we're going on tangents, but a guy whose career as it's progresses seemingly just improved in every single statistical category.
So with that, though, you really think Claxton can hang with these guys?
I think he's got a...
Do you think he will not, especially towards... I think he'll get found out, and I think especially if it comes down to late game situations, the easiest solution to him is just hack him.
Are you talking about offensively, Nick?
Oh, both ends. Oh, not so much defensive, but I think offensive is almost going to get him not on the court.
Oh, no, I don't think that. I think offensively, his game is better defensively than it is offensively.
Depending who they play,
and that probably will get found out. But he's definitely not the first offensive option. I don't think he's a second. He may not even be the third. I'm more saying on the defensive end, he's going to be a threat to these guys like Giannis and like Embiid.
Everything you say, buddy, on the defensive end, I take with a grain of salt now because I remember when you know what I'm going to say.
I don't.
when you said Herb Jones was going to win DPOY, that he was going to be all NBA, should I say, first team. So everything you say now about defense, I'm like,
that was, for clarification, guys, that wasn't a comment I just threw out there. We did an episode on hot takes, and that was my boiling hot take. I
boiling hot take.
Got third degree burns with that hot take.
Well, where do you see Claxton? Just as we then re-center back to Lee there, do you think he can match it with these big heavy hitters? You look at Giannis Brook for the Bucks, Embiid, even Bam, the Cavs. You look at Mobley and Allen, in particular, Allen there. Like, there's a lot of really good top tier big men within that Eastern Conference. Even Rob Williams, Al Horford,
for sure. Yeah,
can he hang with these guys?
Define hang, because I mean, for me personally, like, I agree with Lee in terms of his defensive side of his game is really, sort of think, quite underrated, to be honest with you. Like, I think doesn't receive a lot of credit where he should. In saying that, I think if he would to come up against, for example, Joel Embiid, good offense, particularly in the big games, will outdo good defense every single day.
And that's the thing about those big guys, isn't it, that I just alluded to? They're doing it on both ends.
Yep.
That's like, it's like discrediting Draymond Green his whole game because he's not as good offensively, though. Like, Nick Claxton isn't first, second, third, or I'd say fourth option offensively. You know? Okay.
Well,
that's my part.
No, I like it.
I'll rattle through these other ones.
Absolutely.
I got Hawks in that.
You see, we wanted this, though. We said debates at the top of the show. Like, we say we'll deliver.
I've got Hawks in that 8th spot. Yep. Like you said, Nick, if you're a Hawks fan, it's a disappointing season.
I think so, yes.
Murray didn't move the needle like they thought he would. Trae Young's been a bit streaky. He's been better as of late. The front office has had a major adjustment, head coach-wise.
Do you keep Collins? If you were in the front office, do you keep Collins or get rid of him?
Keep him for the rest of the season.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, keep Collins for now. On the brighter side, I do think they're playing with a bit more urgency. Defensively, Trae Young has improved perimeter-wise. Not that he's great, but it's the step in the right direction.
They were tragic against the Heat this week.
Were they?
Tragic. It was hard to watch how bad they were.
Yep.
And over time, I think they'll become adjusted to how, Quinn Snyder's coaching style, but I don't think it'll be in enough time for them to reach that 7th or 6th spot. At 9th spot, I've got the Wizards.
Wiz?
Wow. I've got the Wizards in the 9th spot.
He's old no less.
Yeah.
Unlike the Hawks, I think this is
sucker for pain. This guy coming back to an next lower, he just loves it.
I think, you up text at 2 a.m. in the morning. What's going on?
I think this is kind of where everyone, including me, expected the Wizards to be this season, somewhere in the play-in, which I think they'll end up. They've definitely established a big 3 now in Porzingis, Beal, and Kuzma.
Having a better season, Porzingis, than his All-Star season, might I just add. He's looked really good in terms of points, rebounds, and actual field goal percentage. Better than his All-Star season.
This is definitely Porzingis's best season, in my opinion. And I think it goes under the radar a bit. He's been magnificent.
Is that just because of how shit the Wizards are?
I mean, they haven't been too bad, but I guess they're just not a franchise. They're not Lakers, and they're not one of these big.
No, they're not.
Just teams. Quickly with Porzingis, like you were mentioning before. Do we think he's maybe having his best season due to the fact that there's probably been as little expectation on him as there probably has been in his career? From my personal perspective, I feel like the years where he's struggled, the standard for him at the start of the season has been through the roof.
Yeah.
And the years where he's exceeded, the bar's been much lower.
Yeah.
So I kind of think that's why we're noticing him so much this season.
I think that contributes to it. And then just as you age, the more, basketball IQ you gain, the better you get overall.
Probably just both those points you've said certainly contribute. There does seem to be a correlating factor with expectations and output.
Yes.
So hopefully everyone predicts them for a 15th place finish next season, and they'll be goddamn MVP of the league.
Yeah.
And then Beal has also looked great after being kind of on and off all season with injuries. He's kind of now staying here. He's not been injured for a while, and he's been very, very efficient. He's actually shooting a career high from the field at 50% this
There you
year.
go.
So if they can stay healthy, I think they'll secure a playing spot. Last team, so this would be what, 11?
10.
Yep. I've got
That's
the
right.
Raptors.
Sure.
Another team with a very underwhelming season. They've just been very stagnant, and it kind of coexists with how they didn't make any moves at the trade deadline.
So forgetting Will Barton.
Will Barton,
who's
Will the
not
Thrill.
done a lot.
Yeah.
To be honest, just on that before you go, Lee, I thought he was going to have off the bench, granted it's only been a couple of weeks, a bigger output and actually contribute a lot more than what he has. He's not really delivered much so far. So
he hasn't thrilled, has he, Will?
He's not thrilled. He's not killed anyone.
No.
He's not done anything really. I was trying to think of one more good rhyming one. I couldn't quite get there.
That's all right, mate.
Disappointing so far.
I think their lack of moves.
Yes.
Yeah, it definitely won't move them up the scale. It'll, in my opinion, actually move them down the scale a bit. They also do have the 5th hardest schedule remaining. I would, in light of that, I probably would move them out of the play-in spot, but their 3 last games are against the Milwaukee Bucks and the Celtics twice, but I think they'll be resting players around that time. So that's my reasoning.
The Bucks and the Celtics.
Yeah, but they'll be resting. I think they'll be resting Giannis, Tatum, Brown.
Even still, that's bleak. That's a shitty way to end the season, isn't it? What do you hope for there? You're hoping for 2? Like if at that stage, you're probably wanting 2 wins at least, don't you?
I mean, if you're Milwaukee, if you've built a little bit of a lead on Boston, then maybe you do. But yeah, they're still a tough squad, even when they don't have Giannis playing.
Oh, Javon Carter out here to lighten it up.
Javon hitting 50s, yeah.
So if we get into the 3 playing games.
Yep, what do you got for us?
Game 1 would be Hawks versus Nets.
Yep.
And I have the Hawks beating the Nets.
I agree.
So Hawks secure that 7 spot.
Yep.
Game 2 is the Wizards versus the Raptors. And I have the Wizards topping the Raptors in that one.
Yeah.
So
interesting.
So that would be Game 3, Wizards versus Nets.
Yep.
And I think the Wizards would get on top of the Nets for that 8th spot.
There you go. Love it.
So Wizards are making the playoffs.
Yep. Wizards are in.
Wow, that took a while for it to sink in.
To process it. Yeah, that's
tell you what, that Wizards Bucks first round matchup is going to be over very, very quickly.
That's going to be a tough watch, I reckon. But stranger things have happened.
Yeah.
I keep throwing back a couple of years ago when the Magic faced the Bucks, and was it Terrence Ross hit a game winner buzzer beater or something in the con?
You're right.
And it was like, just a what if moment. Like imagine, but. Nevertheless, Wizards, there you go, Lee. You just can't help but pull yourself back towards the Wizards, can you?
I don't hate them.
Get the contract
I like
out.
The Wizards.
Oh, look at him. I don't
My
hate
contract has expired for the Hornets, but I'm staying with them.
Well, the way you spoke about, before we came on air over a game of 2K, the way you spoke about the Hornets there suggests that you could be on thin ice with them.
Wait
till the draft. Wait till the draft.
If they don't get a good pick, then we might look to move on.
I couldn't.
Imagine if you moved on and they got Wemby.
I know, exactly.
It'd be horrible.
Exactly my point.
Ro, what have you got for the Eastern Conference?
I'll be pretty quick with mine. I won't go into as much analysis, but for me, I've got Miami versus Atlanta in that first 7v8 matchup. I think Miami, in my opinion, with playoffs on the line, I think they live up to that game and they will win that game, in my opinion. They've got big game players on that squad, I think, Miami, and they've been there and done that before in those big games. I think it's super beneficial to have these guys who have had finals experience, playoff experience, and there's a lot of guys from that squad who do.
Let me, before you move on, ask you this quick question. On that Heat team then, now it might seem simple. Who is your go-to guy? Do you look at Hero? Do you look at Bam? Do you go Jimmy? Who's the guy you're like, this is the guy, like, I'm going to kind of, if needed, he's going to put the team on his back and carry us.
Playoff Jimmy for mine, I think, is the one who they're going to go.
It was incredible him against the Lakers.
Oh, wasn't it incredible?
Hunched over the bloody signage at the end, just spent all his petrol tickets.
And for me, it depends on the quarter. Because I would maybe go Bam overall, but if you look in fourth quarter, You're looking at Jimmy Butler, in my opinion.
And I think we've said this throughout the course of his career. Like, I think even before that playoffs run, that he's not really a regular season guy. But when the game's on the line, he steps up. And I think he will, certainly in this game. And Bam will be a nice accompanying player for him.
Very good.
And then in that second matchup, I've got Toronto v Washington. So it's pretty much as is at the moment in terms of 7, 8, 9, 10.
So the Wizards make your play-in as well.
They make my play-in.
Yeah, okay.
But this is where they go out. They don't make the playoffs.
I was about to say
Toronto.
Can't be having two blokes say the Wizards are going to make it. This is outrageous.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so. Toronto will take that one.
Yep.
And then Atlanta v Toronto. I'd love for Toronto to get in, but they won't. I think Atlanta, as you were saying before, I think they've probably got a few too many guys on that team who can step up and win that game for them.
It hasn't clicked yet, but you can see a world in which it does really work.
If
you look at that
right,
five, Kongu, Bogdanovic. There's enough there to like.
Yeah, I'm with you. So in the end, it will be Miami taking that 7 spot, Atlanta taking the 8 spot, and then Toronto and Washington, unfortunately, just falling a tiny bit short.
So just real quick, who would you have in that 6th spot, like securing that 6th spot?
Probably the Nets.
Yeah, I had the Nets.
Yeah, the Nets. So they're making it. Okay.
Yeah. All aboard the Nets train. I love it. I'm here for it. Underdogs. Heart of a champion. Lads, let's transition to the West. I'll kickstart us. I'll go through pretty quickly once again. In my 7-8 matchup, I've got Battle of LA.
This is going to be great for NBA fans.
I've got the LA Clippers facing the LA Lakers. Now, there's such a funny little predicament this for me, going head or heart.
Yes.
I've gone with both. I've gone my winner for this one being the Lakers. Now,
I wouldn't have picked it, Nick. Wouldn't have picked it. Not in a million years.
I initially put down Clippers, but I thought, no, that's pretty poor form if I say that. I can't say that. No. I know Matty B would have given me hell with the Fifth and Dribble podcast. Love what they're doing over there from the lads. But I've got to go to the Lakers. I really like, again, if LeBron comes back healthy, D'Lo comes back with the way, and again, Mo Bamba, if he comes back as well, who we spoke about earlier, I quite like their roster. I think it looks a lot healthier now than what it did before the deadline with Russ coming in. And all signs, I know they got a win the other day, but since Westbrook's come into the fold, again, it's kind of correlated a little bit with losses for the Clippers. They've had a pretty ordinary last couple of weeks.
I don't want to give that. I don't want to put that on Westbrook.
No, I don't want to put it on him either. No, I'm not solely because
it's not funny how he goes to the other LA team and he's automatically the scapegoat once again.
No, because I really do, and I've spoken about this with quite a few people. I love Russ.
Yeah,
I love his energy. I love the way he plays. I hate his shot selection.
Yeah, as do I.
But I really do like him, so I'm not going to place that solely on him. But he has been a contributing factor. But I'm taking the Lakers in this particular matchup. I'm sure that'll get a few little bites there.
Yes,
mate, I'm all for the clickbait here. I'm trying to defeat the algorithm.
Yep.
In the 9-10 matchup, I've got the Minnesota Timberwolves against the New Orleans Pelicans.
Yep.
The winner for this one, it's hard. Again, it's kind of like what happens with Kat, what happens with Zion. I am going to go towards the Pelicans.
Okay.
Now the Wolves, they've had quite a good last week, probably 2 weeks. But I'm going to err towards the Pelicans. I just think with Ingram, McCollum, Valanciunas there, I think there's a little bit more offensive firepower. So with that, the last chance matchup there would see facing the Clippers versus the Timberwolves. In this one, got to go the Clippers. I think their depth, even though roster's shortened in these do-or-die games, I think their depth and the quality they have would just be a little bit too much for the Wolves to contend with. And for the Wolves overall, I think they would see this as a pretty disappointing season, given they sold the farm and then some for Gobert. I think they have been rather disappointing. And I think their future looks quite bleak as well, even when Kat comes back. I think all signs aren't looking great at the moment out there in Minnesota.
Well, I think it's still because how long's Kat? He's been on and off all season.
He's been out for quite a extensive period at the moment.
I feel like it's going to be hard to integrate him again.
Even when he started in, though, the whole spacing and who the ball was going to, and schematically, it just wasn't really firing. So,
like, I hate to say it, but they almost look better without him. To be honest,
to be fair, they actually do, and it's really coincided with Edwards stepping up.
Yeah,
that guy, I'm
He's a big bowler, isn't he?
I kind of, I didn't think I thought he was good. Didn't really have too many thoughts on him as such. But over the last probably month, 2 months, he's really grown on me. The way he takes on the game, without Cat, as you said, Lee, great point. In particular, the Wolves look better when he's the go-to guy. When Cat's in, they're kind of trying to disperse the ball too much or look to feed him too much.
Yeah.
Tell you what, when does Ant come out of contract? Because I tell you what, if he was
Hot
on
commodity.
a half contending team, I really don't like the Wolves, to be honest with you. I don't like Cat, and I don't like the franchise in general.
Do you like Gobert?
And I don't like Rudy Gobert either. But if he was on a contending team, he would be on another level of stardom. He'd be up on the superstardom level.
How much of the Jazz? The Jazz are just out here living at the minute. They've dropped the last week or two. They're not going to make the play. Who cares? Happy days. How good would they be feeling about what Walker Kessler's providing, the draft assets they've got? They've got rid of Gobert. Things are looking real good out there in Utah. So, nevertheless, that's my prediction today for the West lads. So, all aboard the Laker train. Choo choo.
So, if you just go ahead, so Lakers 7th and
Lakers 7th, Clippers 8th.
Okay. Did you say that last game about Clippers? So it'd be Clippers versus
Wolves, wasn't it?
No,
Clippers versus Pelicans. Sorry,
Oh.
Clippers versus Pelicans.
Didn't even talk about it.
No, I said Clippers versus Wolves. My mistake there. Clippers versus Pelicans. It doesn't change it. I've got the Clippers.
Yeah,
got the Clippers regardless. Lee?
Now, do I just read it as I did the other one?
No,
you do your own thing.
I guess it gives us a bit of a chance to talk about these teams a bit more in depth.
Yeah.
At that 7th spot in the West, I've got the Dallas Mavericks. So I think the Clippers will slip into that 6th spot.
Yep.
And Mavs will sit at 7th. I think, Kyrie and Luka have been great together, but they've still got an adjustment period that I think they're still in, where they've got to figure out how to share the ball between each other. And as a team, there's always been worries on the defensive end. There still is. And there's also worries rebounding ability. They're pretty low in the standings in terms of rebounding.
Yeah, they're quite small, aren't they?
They are. For the Mavs, it's not so much of a case of the Mavs not being good enough to make the play-in, but it's more so the Clippers having more playoff experience. Their new acquisitions, they've got not only Russ, but they got Plumlee, they got Bones Highland, they got Eric Gordon. They got some really, really good pieces that I think will secure that 6th spot for them.
Yep.
8th, I've got the T-Wolves. I want to give some credit to them because, we thought they'd finish higher, but with Cat out and them being at 7, I think that's pretty good for them.
But again, with all this, do you take it with a grain of salt because there's only a game or two separating them between 7th and 11th?
I guess you do.
Next week they could be 12th and we'd be like, wow, they suck.
I guess you do, but like you said, recently they've been
had a good week. They had a good trip out to LA. They beat the Lakers. They beat the Kings.
It's very, very late, but I think they're finally finding their groove, and it's a shame that Cat's out because he's a core part of their team. But with Conley coming along, Conley's been great, to be honest, better than D'Lo.
Nah, he's washed.
Man, Conley's been good. He's directed the traffic. He's doing something D'Lo couldn't do. I think they'll sit 8th.
Conley.
9th, I've got the Lakers.
This is what fantasy does just quickly.
I know, it makes you hate players.
You hate players, and for goodness only knows what reason I put Conley in for a period, and I now resent the bloke.
Yeah, what's he been giving you?
He gave me nothing. He's long gone now.
Yeah.
He didn't last long.
Oh, that's a shame.
Like I was saying, 9th, I've got Lakers. I think they'll manage without LeBron, and by manage, I mean they won't fall out of the play-in. Bless you. It helps when on your team you have 2 outright superstars in LeBron and Anthony Davis, so it's not doomsday, it's not sirens going off if one of them's out. And
D-Rush, you're not put as a super. He's a high level star, isn't he?
He's a star.
D'Lo is a bit patchy, but yeah.
AD as that front man right now has looked amazing over the last 5 games. He's averaging 33, 14, and 3, which is exactly what you want to see from him.
Just staying on the court. Like when he went down the other day, he had his face split open. I was like, you can just say like a broken nose or a busted Whatever it is, you could just see him being out for multiple weeks. But
hasn't he become a meme for that?
He is, and that's the thing.
Like,
I've lost all faith in him just because of those health concerns.
So him being that number one scoring option and contributing massively on the defensive end.
Yep.
Alongside with their new acquisitions, I think they just look so much more structured.
Vanderbilt has been unbelievable on that defensive end, and even being a contributor on the offensive end, but in particular defensive. He has been electric.
I chucked him into my fantasy team.
Yeah, exactly. This squad looks so much more well-rounded. Blokes who can play on both ends of the floor, who can knock down shots.
Isn't it funny, because out of all their recruits, he was probably the one that went under the radar the most.
Yeah.
And he seems to be the most solid of these recruits so far. So, yeah, big ups to him.
And in that 10th spot.
Big ups.
Big ups, indeed.
Huge ups, actually.
Got the Pelicans in that 10th spot. I don't have too much to say, but they're just injury riddled very much so right now. Not only Zion being out, but Jose Alvarado and Larry Nance out as well for I think 2 weeks, both of them. So that's your best offensive scorer in Zion Williamson, and then your two best. I forgot about Herb Jones.
Oh God, not this again.
Stop it.
Two of your greatest defensive players gone.
Not even using best, he's using greatest.
Greatest.
Extra emphasis.
I don't think they'll slip below 10, but that's where they'll sit.
Yep.
So that brings us to the 3 games. Game 1 would be Mavs versus the Wolves, and I have the Mavs topping the Wolves. Mavs get into that 7th spot.
Roger.
Game 2 would be the Lakers versus the Pelicans.
Yep.
I have the Lakers topping the Pels in that one.
Do.
Pelicans are gone.
Yeah, a little bit.
So that'd be the Lakers versus the T-Wolves in Game 3. Gotcha. And I have the Lakers making that 8th spot.
There you go. I like it. I was a little bit nervous there as that went on. I thought you might have tried to pull the rug from under my feet.
No.
But no, very good. Well explained and rationalised there, Lee. Good. Let's transition to the other side of the couch. Roy, what have you got?
I'll tell you what, in terms of analysis, I feel like Lee is JJ Redick and I'm Patrick Perkins this episode, because
you don't want to compare yourself to Kent.
Given the bare minimum in comparison to Lee, but I'll give you it regardless. In that first matchup, I have Dallas v Minnesota. And look, the jury's still out for mine on Dallas. There's no doubt about it, because I think as great of players as Luka and Kyrie Irving both are, Kyrie entered this team very late in the season, and it's still taken a little while to gel with one another.
Yeah.
Just because you put 2 great players on the same team doesn't mean it's going to equate to wins. But 100%. I have Dallas Mavericks over the Minnesota Timberwolves. Not very high on the Minnesota Timberwolves, as I've mentioned before. In the second matchup, I will have the Lakers up against a bit of a surprise one.
Blazers?
OKC. I love that.
Ooh. OKC.
Yeah.
I don't have the Pelicans finish in the play-in. I don't think Zion...
I'm here for that. I like it.
I don't actually think Zion's scheduled to be back before the end of the regular season, is he? I think the last I heard, I think he might be out for the remainder, which is a big contributor.
Only one game back, the Thunder as well.
They're not far off it, and they've got a bit of...
Spicy.
I don't know. They've got a bit of something about them.
Bit of ticker
about them. No one's expecting anything.
Can't be taught.
And I think they'll come up against the Lakers in that second matchup, and I think the winner will be...
How will it fare?
Oh my God, I think it will be the Lakers.
Okay, that's all right.
I don't think they will end up getting over the Lakers. As you were mentioning before, the Lakers have recruited quite well in that little break over the over the mid-season break. And in that last matchup, the Minnesota Timberwolves against the Lakers. Look, I think Minnesota will just get up against the Lakers.
But with what reasoning?
Bollocks.
I just don't.
Bollocks.
I just don't have faith.
You're tugging my leg here, aren't you?
No,
you're having a little bit
of
a chuckle.
I'm absolutely not.
No.
I think Minnesota might just have, in that one game, like if it was a game of 7, I probably would have the Lakers. But I feel like Minnesota might even be coming into that game against the Lakers as underdogs. And I think they might be having a bit of a chip on their shoulder type of performance in that one game.
Are you basing this on LeBron being back?
Well, LeBron being back is a bit of an if at the moment. So if he's back, or it's going, I don't know. I guess mine would be if he wasn't back.
Okay.
I think he's going to be back.
I think he'll be back. I think he's slated to be back.
In about 3 weeks, I thought.
An underdone LeBron coming into a one-off game.
He still pisses on everyone.
He does.
Roster,
he absolutely does. And I don't like saying it because I don't like Minnesota, but it's just a gut feeling that I have. So in the end, I think Dallas and Minnesota will take up those last 2 spots in the playoffs.
And you had Clippers in the 6th spot, I assume.
Clippers in the 6th spot. Yep.
Fellas, very good. I like it. There was a few differences. I like the OKC pick there. I like how plucky they are.
Joshy Giddey's been stepping up recently in a big way.
Giddey's been tremendous. He has been absolutely fantastic. SGA there. Again, just lots of blokes. Like, it's just an absolute 3-fest.
It is.
Again, a super fun team to watch. I hope they make it. I'd love to see them make it.
Me too.
Again, granted, if they don't, take nothing away from what they've done this season. Things are really looking good out there in OKC. Poku coming back. Chet Holmgren.
I forgot about Chet.
Chet, the number 2 overall pick when this season's draft, we've not even seen yet. Possibly combined with another top round pick in maybe Scoot Henderson, Victor Wembanyama, one of the other top players within this draft. The multitude of assets they've got over the next not only 5 but 10 years. They are situated really, really well to make a run at things over the course of the next decade. So great signs there out in OKC.
Yep.
Lads, it has been a blast doing this. It's been a blast having us all back on the couch once again. As I said, about 20 games, give or take, to go for each team within the regular season. We are gearing up now for postseason basketball. Can you feel the energy, lads?
That'll fly. And I'll tell you what, even just mentioning these playing games that are likely to occur, it's like, to be honest with you, these playing predictions, as much as we hope that they're true in terms of the teams that are in them, there's a number of other teams who are probably a little bit stiff not to make it. And
knocking on the door.
Teams who might fall into that position where they're at risk. So a lot to play out.
A lot to play out. Still a lot to decide. Every game has so much meaning behind it. So, guys, we would love to hear what you thought of our predictions here. All a little bit different in their own right. Who got it right? Who got it wrong? Probably me. So be sure to hit us up on all the socials, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok. Give us your thoughts. Be sure to follow for all the latest news around the league. I will be back now pending. We've got Game 3 tipping off for the NBL Finals very, very shortly. The New Zealand Breakers against the Sydney Kings, as we record about 10 minutes time. And then Game 4 on Sunday. Normally I record on Monday night. That would depend. I'm going to base it on what happens after Game 4. If there's still Game 5 to play out, I'll hold off recording. So my next episode will be once an NBL champion is crowned. If that's on Sunday, I'll record on Monday. If not, I'll record on Wednesday. So really looking forward to sharing that one with you guys. By next week, we will have an NBL champion crowned. And us next week, we'll be back on the couch together to discuss everything NBA.
Looking forward to it.
Guys, till then, from Lee, Roy, and myself, we hope you have a tremendous week. Enjoy every game as it is all action at the moment. Can't wait to speak to you soon. Bye.